Okay. Hello, everyone. How are you? We are here with the International Medical Conference. We are here with Dr. Muluken Zeleke Megiso. We are going to talk today about his journey with Step 2 USMLE, and he received a very high score of 281. Dr. Zeleke Megiso, IMG from Ethiopia. He graduated from Addis Ababa University in December of 2018. He graduated with great distinction. During medical school, he was an AHEAD Award winner for academic excellence during clinical year, an active member of EMSA AA, volunteer at Red Cross AA, the Macedonian Humanitarian Association, and the Christian Medical Students Association. After graduation, he worked as a general practitioner in a remote area of the country for a year and joined Woliata Sodo University as an academic lecturer and physician for 2 years. During his stay at both institutions, he had a leadership role, research involvement, and provided community service within and outside of medical practice, such as being an IEP ambassador in Ethiopia. He decided to pursue USMLE when he was in medical school. However, the path has not been an easy one. At some point, he almost ended his journey, but now he is very glad he continued. Welcome, Dr. Megiso.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Megiso, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and your background, how you decide, like what was the deciding factor for you to pursue USMLE?
Okay. Most of the thing you have already said, like deciding to join actually medicine for me is like, and I was at high school, like I was born in one of the remote areas in the country. So like there was actually no health system. Like it's like 6 hours drive from my family. My father was a teacher at that time. And like there was, I was exposed to many infectious diseases like that. So one time I was admitted to hospital for severe malaria, like, and at that time I got the chance to meet a doctor, and I was like so curious, and I asked him like, how can I be like you? And he said, just study hard. And that was, I guess, my turning point. After that, like I was high school, and like I joined Addis Ababa University. That's like one of the best universities in the country, a medical college in the country, and my medical school time was like also, it was really great, and I was like graduated with very great distinction. And then after that, I had the chance to join, to stay as academic lecturer at university, but I decided to go back to the community I was born, and I like served for a year as a general practitioner, as you already said. And after that, like I wanted to experience research and also experience like teaching, so I decided to rejoin a university. So that was like my journey, and the time I decided to pursue like USMLEs when I was at college, when I was at medical college, like that was the time like I decided like to learn, like especially there were people like it was the best university at the country at that time, so there were some students who were like going to USA and like succeeding in USMLE. So I decided like why don't I try, like why don't I learn as the best setup, and that was when I decided, but it took me like long time like to reach at this point.
Perfect, thank you. Now, can you tell us a little bit about how you studied or what systems you used to achieve such a high score in your step 2?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah, people ask me like, what was like your most important resource, like stuff like that. But I would say it was like multiple things that determine my success or like my good score. So one of the thing is how I prepared for my step 1, and I took step 1 during pass or fail, but I prepared. It was like score, like as it gets scored, like in numbers. So I like read every resources, especially first aid. And then as initially I started with first aid and the PNB, and I tried to understand everything that was written on first aid, because the resources I can find for free is first aid, and at that time, so I tried to like understand everything. After that, I started taking these question banks, specifically UWorld. So that made like a big impact on the way I understand, the way how like questions appear. So that like made a lot easier for me when I study for step 2, like because I already had a good baseline. So after that, I like took 1 month off between, and I decided to check which resource I should use, like to maximize my score. Like I was planning actually to have a score of 270. So I was not planning for 218. I was like planning for 270. So it's like, how can I maximize like to get that score? And like, so I planned, and I was checking like on online. There are Telegram groups, and which resource to use. So I find out like first aid for step 2. I found out was there was white code companion, and like many people recommend that, and then I like tried to buy them, and I checked in first month both of them. Like I'm a hard copy kind of person. I want something to study, like while doing online or computer-based exams or reading PDFs. I want something to write on, so I bought both of them, and I started preparing. So I decided like, when I check, I'm not recommending against anything, but when I checked first aid, step 2, and white code companion, I find it better like to study with white code companion, because I have to decide which resources to use. So I picked white code companion, and I started my preparation with UWorld. So like then I was like really focused, and I was building initially mainly on the concepts. I was not memorizing initially. I was like mainly building on concepts. I wasn't using MBME materials early on. Like I mainly tried to like build on the concepts. After that, later on, like, and I was like 2.5 months out, I started using MBME materials. That was how I prepared.
So you took a month off after your step 1, which you built a great baseline, and you treated it as if if you were getting a numerical score, a 3-digit score. It wasn't a just do the bare minimum to pass. It was do all that you can to get the best base possible. And in this month that you took off between the step 1 and you started to prepare, you started researching, and as I'm sure asking other IMGs, which we often look towards to people in our similar situation, because it's not the same to ask a US medical student and to ask an IMG, since our preparation is completely different. And normally, generally, we decide, most of us, to pursue the USMLE after graduation.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you studied with first aid for step 2 specifically?
I haven't used first aid for step 2. I used first aid for step 1.
Mm-hmm.
And as I already told you, I wanted a hard copy, something like to write on. So I like compared between step 2 first aid and white coat companion. There is a book called White Coat Companion, and so I decided to go with White Coat Companion. Like after checking all in months and like what is there inside there, like how does it cover everything.
So White Coat Companion is a book that it's specifically for step 2, or are they different books for different subjects like pediatrics, general surgery, psychiatry?
It's a book for step 2 and a step 3, and
Okay,
they cover like most of the things, not everything, but most of the things.
So it will, okay. And then how long did you take between you reading White Coat Companions and for you to start doing MBMEs?
Okay, so I didn't actually read White Coat Company. Like I wanted to use it as like a notebook. So,
So like a
like
guide.
to annotate on it,
Yeah.
like to annotate on it, like from UWorld. So I didn't like specifically state White Coat. I started it with UWorld. So
Okay.
after my 1 month break, I started like I bought online like 6 months package of UWorld, and I started with White Coat. So I was annotating concepts on White Coat, like, and I was like putting stickers and everything. So my main focus was on UWorld, like so White Coat is like a writing book for me, not like.
So it was a book of reference. You use that to reference and like maybe look up little treatments or anything that you could find there. And then with UWorld, you used it side by side.
Yeah.
And for how long did you do that before you started doing the NBMEs?
So it took me like for to finish first pass of UWorld, it took me like 3.5 months. Like I started on November and I finished it like on February 15. So it took me like 3.5 months, and that was my first pass. I usually do like 14 questions a day, so I wanted to like focus on mastering the concept, not to finish the review, or like I was focusing on to master the concept. So I was like doing 14 questions like in timed mode, and then I would like revise them, or I would do like my correctness, incorrectness after that, and I annotate some of the concepts on my White Coat Companion, and that was how I was going like in 3.5 months. Like I do like 6 days a week, 14 questions. So that was how long it took me. Like some people make it like finish it like in 2 months, like that, like 2 blocks a day, but I didn't do that.
So 14 questions a day?
Yeah.
For 6 days a week for 3.5 months? And then you started, and then you took an MBME?
Then I took MBME, old one. It was an offline one, so I took MBME, and that was like my baseline. Like when I finished my first pass, I took MBME. After that, I started my incorrects, and from UWorld, my incorrects and my marked ones. And I also started with that CMS forms. Like, so that, like after that, actually after finishing first pass, I planned out like how long do I have to take the actual exam, and how many MBME resources do I have to take, like to evaluate how many self-assessments do I have. And then I decided like to take every week one assessment. So
did you review your MBMEs?
Yes, I like it took me like 10 weeks to finish all the self-assessments. So I took it like every week, one self-assessment. And what I did was I took one self-assessment, and after that I for example, I took my self-assessment on Fridays. So I took it on Friday, and then I took it Thursday, and then I revised it, my incorrects, my corrects, everything on Friday and Saturday. Then on Sunday, I start with my UWorld incorrect and my CMS form. So that was like every week thing until my exam day.
So you didn't do a second pass of the entire UWorld.
Yeah.
You just did like your incorrects and marked questions once again until you were at zero, at baseline again.
Yeah, I checked, like I wanted to do second pass, and I actually checked there's Reddit groups and like they recommend. So I wanted to do like the second pass. It was like 4,000 questions, and like it was like when I like plan my exam day, it's like impossible to finish that. And there is also a CMS forms that's like 2,000 questions. So it was like when you put it together, it's like impossible to finish. So I decided to focus on my incorrects and my marked ones, and to do also CMS forms. The other thing is, during my study time, I was annotating, so most of the things are on the book. So I was like reading during that time. I was reading my notes, so I would cover my corrects and everything during that time.
And some people are not familiar with what the CMS form is. Can you explain that to us, please?
Okay, CMS forms are also the same thing that is on MBME site, and they are, I guess, if there is an American student, they can explain this better, because they are like what can I say? There are surgery blocks, there are medicine blocks, so they are specific for each department. You know, this is the exams American students to take like for their clinical years.
So in US, when you have a rotation, let's say internal medicine, once the US medical students finish the internal medicine rotation, they must pass something called the shelf exam. So the shelf exam, they prepare this with CMS forms, and so the CMS forms will have completely only questions from that specialty. So that kind of explains it a little bit. And UWorld, of course, it has different categories, such as for step 2, psychiatry, obstetrics, pediatrics, all together, but the CMS are individual for each of these. Really the CMS forms, I believe, helped you a lot, no?
Yeah, that's true. They revised most of the things for me, and they are also like, actually they are an MBME resource, so they look like an actual exam. So like the concepts are everywhere, so they help me a lot.
And how long did it take you to take step 2 after step 1? What was the period?
So my actual study time was like 7 months and a half. So after I took step 1, I take 1 month off, and I started preparations, and it took me like 7 months to finish the whole thing.
So 7 months to prepare for between step 1 and step 2.
Yeah.
And a few days before your exam, did you have any strategy, or what were you doing?
Okay, that's a good question. The strategy I used was like, for step 1, I did the same thing, and for step 2, I also did like, what I did was I took dedicated, like I was working before that, so I took a 4-week dedicated time of work, and I started to plan out everything. And then what I did was like, I was doing the weekly routine as a self-assessment, revisions, and everything CMS form. With that, especially during when I was like 2 weeks out, I started revising again my like old questions. Like I did MBME 9 when I was like 6 weeks, 8 weeks out. So it was like far away. So I started like revising like question, answer, like that stuff. So like I try to do like 100 questions a day, just a revision from MBME. And I was like, also in my last weeks, as a resource I used was like there are high yield revisions from Divine podcast. I guess everyone know him, and there are like many resources that many topics he talks, and I use like specific topics for audios on my last week. And I also focused on, especially on last week, as I focused on social science. They are like my, I think my main weaknesses. So I focused on them, especially ethics and professionalism and everything related to that. I focused on them, and I read article on AMBOS, and I did some questions on AMBOS also. So that was like my last 2 week preparation.
So we have somebody commenting. It says, thank you for answering. I'm an IMG from Trinidad and Tobago who graduated in 2019. Currently studying for step 1, and it is not for the faint of heart, but I will make it.
Good luck.
So thank you for sharing. The Divine podcast, did you listen to anyone in specific, or did you go through them all?
Okay, there is a thing, like when I started my dedicated, when I was like 4 weeks out. Before that, one thing I have to tell you is I was like using, starting with my preparation, I was using Divine as my study partner, you know. When I was at work, I like used to, you know, study partner, I mean, like I used to listen his rapid reviews. Rapid reviews are like a question and answer things. So like when I was at work, or when I am at gym or somewhere, I used to like put on his rapid review, and I was like revising, like randomly revising. So he asks randomly. So I was start using that. And when I was like 4 weeks out, I decided like to check out how can I like use Divine maximally during my dedicated time. And I found out an episode that he posted that was like specifically, I remember because many people were asking me, and it was like 447. And he says about how to use Divine in 2023. So he like specifically tells which episode to listen, like which episode to focus and everything. So I wrote out them, and I was like using Divine every day during my dedicated time, like especially in the morning. I listen like at least for 2 episodes, and then I go to studying and everything. So that helped me a lot, and especially his shelf reviews, like literally helped me a lot.
How many times, which I'm sure this question is hard to ask, how many times did you revise or you annotated your white code book?
So after first pass, I started revising my notes system-wise. So it took me like almost more than 2 months to finish the whole thing. So I was doing system-wise, like I might be doing incorrect, but I was like plan it out, and like this week I might revise cardiovascular system. The next week I might do respiratory. So I was revised like that. So it took me like more than 2 months. I was like doing questions and everything. So you can't revise everything once.
Do you have any recommendations of which order to give NBMEs when doing your preparation?
Okay, that's a good question. I would say, from my experience, I did like literally according to the numbers. I started with from offline MBME, like it was all MBME 6. I started with that, and then I like literally doing until 12. There is currently MBME 30 is out. That was like after my exam. So I would recommend you can do like 9, 10, 11, 12, literally like that.
So
I
in
don't
the
know.
same order as your
Yeah,
forms, you don't have any
yeah,
recommendation of.
yeah. That's what I did. So I'd say that.
Okay. And Sana Sultana says, congratulations on your score. Can you tell us about your baseline NBME score? And Salem says, how did you score in your practice exams compared to your real score?
Okay, that's also a good one. So my practice scores was like, especially, it's difficult to change the offline. So I'm going to tell you the online ones, like I did on MBME site. So my MBME 9 was like around 273. And after that, I progressed, like my MBME 10 was 278. My MBME 11 was in 218. That's like my highest score MBME. Then on my MBME 12 was like kind of difficult for me, and it was like it was 275. And my UWorld self-assessment one was 278, and my UWorld self-assessment 2 was 275, and my AMBOS was also the same. I also took self-assessment of AMBOS. And my 300, 320 was, old one was 98%, and the new one was 95%. So that was my
So really,
self-assessment.
these were all great predictors for the score that you got in the real step 2 CK.
Yes, they were like, I was, as I already told you before, I was planning for 270. So I wanted not to drop from that. And I was like, every week I was focusing to stay in 270s, in the mid 270s. And I was going according to my plan.
And someone has a question regarding biostats. Do you have any resource that you recommend?
Okay, so Biostats is like it was actually initially it was one of my weakness, but I changed it to like one of my strengths later on. The thing is, I used step 1 resources like first aid and the PNB. I read it for step 1, and I used similar resources. I was annotating every when I was watching BNB video, so I annotated it on my first aid step 1 book. So I read it for step 2, same thing. And I did questions from AMBOS and from UWorld. And I also tried to watch some YouTube videos, but my specific recommendation is to understand your step 1 first aid, and to understand the concept. It's not just formula, but like the concept is what is p-value, what's confidence interval, what's like, everything that's written on first aid, like widen on them, and I guess you will be good.
Do you have any tips after 4 blocks that the mind gets fatigued? How do you maintain stamina until the end of the day?
Yeah, okay. That was also before exam. That was my question. And the thing is, an exam day, most of the time there is an adrenaline rush. So like you go through like until I went like until 5-6 blocks. But after that, you are correct. Like you get fatigued and everything. The thing is, I did first 2 blocks straight, like without a break. And I didn't, I haven't took that tutorial, like I did it at home. So I was like that 15-minute break also. So it was like, after that, after second block, I started taking every 10 minutes. So I go out, I eat my protein bar, I drink like water, and like first until 5 block, I did that. And after 6, I am like a coffee guy. So I like took 15-minute break, and like I drink my coffee as regular, and then I come in. So like it helped me like for next 2 blocks like that. So especially you are like getting close to the last block like that. I know like there is no specific tricks, but your mind gets like really like, fatigued, but you have to try to focus like in every questions. Like that's what I did.
So in the real exam, the way you paced yourself for the 9 hours was first 2 blocks, continuous, no break. And then 10-minute breaks from block between 3 and 4.
3 to 5.
3 to 5, and then you took 15
and
minutes.
15. Yeah.
Okay. Someone says, "Hi, congratulations on your success. Can you summarize resources in short?" So just like a quick summary of what we just talked about.
Okay, so what I did use was like hard copy material is white codes, then there is UWorld, then there is divine intervention, and then there is CMS form and MBME. And I added at some point like AMBOs, like for specific topics, I added AMBOs. And I also, during my dedicated preparation, I also like used some PDFs of Mahelman. If you guys know it, I don't know, but there is free stuff on his website, and I tried to use during my dedicated time only Mahelman PDFs. So that's resources. And I also used Anki that was like locally made. It was an MG from the same country, and it really revised during after my first pass. It helped me to revise UWorld really good. So I used that Anki also.
Which resources do you recommend for undedicated and dedicated period? For about 8 to 10 months. So what would you recommend to start with in the undedicated and finish for the dedicated period?
It would be great if I know if is it for step 1 or step 2, because it's like the resources are kind of different.
It's for step 2. They wanna do an 8 to 10 month preparation.
Okay, so I would focus on like on UWorld. Like UWorld is the best resource everyone can do initially. So UWorld. So you might use hard copy of UWorld notes, or you can use first aid, or you can use white code companion. But start with UWorld. Don't rush through it, like just to finish the questions, but try to understand every topics and try to like watch videos if you don't understand, and like then like try to focus on concepts. Like don't try to memorize initially on algorithms and everything, because it's tempting like to memorize algorithm early on, but it's like go in a week like that out of your mind. So I would focus on UWorld. I would like take notes and if you are an Anki guy, make Anki, do something, and use your first aid, step 1 first aid, like to revise pathophysiologies and stuffs. Like I used to revise every time I go back to my first aid, step 1, and revise specifically for pathophysiology, some pharmacology, some micro stuff. Like you remember the things, but sometimes like you forget the specific things, so you can go like to your step 1 first and revise. And after that, you can start CMS forms. That's like really important ones, and you have to do all MBME and self-assessment. So I focus on them.
So NBMEs and self-assessments, do you recommend an NBME prior to your dedicated period to get a baseline? Or do you think they should reserve them for the dedicated period?
So I would recommend to use it prior to dedicated period, because there are like many self-assessments. If you count them, there are like literally 7 or 8. So I don't know how long you take your dedicated time, but most of the time it's like, for many people, it's 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. So it's better after doing your first pass, I would recommend to take MBME 1, MBME, whichever you want. You can start just like me from the smallest number on the list. And so you can take that one, and then you can go on from that. Like, I would highly recommend to do it weekly, like do it weekly and give it like 2 days. Some people can give 3 days because it's like based on your schedule and everything, it might take longer time to revise, but just don't do MBME as like something just for self-assessment. It's like really a learning material also, because during like in the past, it was like ABCD's answers. Now it's like, if you check it out, it's like there are explanations just like UWorld. So you can try to understand them also. So give like two days, maximum 2 days to revise your incorrects and the corrects. So I would recommend to do it early and to revise it also.
So one of the biggest takeaways that we keep talking about is always to revise the material and use questions as a learning tool. Don't use questions just to test yourself where you are at a baseline of knowledge. Because from this assessment, yes, you can get a score and you can get a prediction, but you can also learn from it and improve for other assessments. And that's kind of what you did weekly for your dedicated, was like testing yourself and learning from these assessments and filling in these gaps of knowledge or just like of review in order to stay with a steady 270 score. So your scores in your assessments never went below 270.
Yes. I was like, every week during my exam day, I was like stressed out not to go below. Like, the thing is, I started this one to 273, so I was like, every time I was stressed out to not go below that, like not drop. But it was like went steady on that. So yeah.
And so we have a question of someone that is studying full-time for step 2. They had a 75% form for step 1. And how long do you think it will take them for to achieve a 270 on step 2 CK?
Okay. Okay. So I don't know the exact time. If like someone is studying full time, it might take based on is a step 1 like baseline, it will take 6 to 8 months, I would say. Because like the thing is, if you take longer time, the thing you studied on step 1 also start to evaporate, you miss out on these basic topics, pathophysiology and stuff like that, whenever you take a longer time to prepare. So it's better to plan out and to be consistent with your plan and to take the exam actually on your plan day. So I would recommend to take like 6 to 8 months and like to plan it out through, and your step 1 score looks good, 75%. If it is the UWorld score, it looks good, like 75%. I don't know which score it is, but if it's on UWorld, then it looks good. So I would plan on that and use my step 1 resources plus the resources we have talked about also. I would plan likewise.
And how did you do your revision while doing your UWorld?
Okay, so during my first pass, I mainly concentrated on taking notes, understanding the concept. So I was not doing revision. I was like trying to. So I initially, like, for 80% of my UWorld block, I did it system-wise. So, and I was like doing cardiovascular system. I was taking notes on cardiovascular system. I was annotating and everything. And after that, I go to renal, likewise. So I didn't try to revise it. I was like just studying every step through. And other thing I did was like after like doing 3-4 system, I started using the Anki. So like I started using like after doing cardiovascular system and other systems like 4 systems, I started using Anki. So I did revision of cardiovascular system. I didn't want to boost my UWorld score of CNS or some other system. I haven't done it. So I started using cardiovascular Ankis and likewise system-wise. So that's how I proceed during my first pass. After that, after I finished my first pass, I started revision system-wise. I started reading my notes, doing my incorrects. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you. So as a brief summary for step 2, Dr. Megiso took around 6 months from step 1, 6 months for preparation. He took 1 month off, so it was a total of 7 months. He started
8 months.
Oh, sorry, total of 8 months.
Yeah, 7 months for preparation.
So during this preparation, he was working full time until he did the last 4 weeks where he took off for his dedicated period. And he was doing around 14 questions of UWorld per day for 6 days a week and annotating his notes from UWorld on the white code book he had in a physical format. And then once he went system by system, he started using Anki and revising all these different systems as he did not want to falsely inflate his UWorld score by viewing Anki cards of that system specifically prior to doing the questions for each system. And after this, he did a UWorld self-assessment before he's dedicated, and weekly he did 1 self-assessment. He also used the CMS forms.
Forms, yeah.
The CMS forms, which are formats that help people prepare for their shelf exams, the US medical students, which they have to do after each rotation for their core rotations, which is internal medicine, psychiatry, obstetrics and gynecology, pediatrics, and such. And all his NBME and self-assessments ranged between 270 and the highest score was 281, 283, 280. So they were a good predicting value for his actual score the day of the exam. And also during the exam, he only took a break after the second block for 10 minutes until block 5, where the last 2 blocks he took 15 minutes break in order to maintain his stamina throughout the exam, because the mind does get fatigued with an 8-9 hour exam.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to add from anything that we talked about, that you give any recommendation to anyone studying?
So I would say like to focus on understanding topics, like don't to try to like memorize or algorithms or stuff like that early on. Like just focus on understanding. I know, like an exam day, the things you remember are like from past, like you don't know, like they are in your mind, but you remember somehow. So if you understand the concepts, that what will happen. So and I would like advise them to be committed to their plans, and especially during dedicated time. It's like I know it's like the hardest time, like to pass, so like to focus on their goals and like to stay motivated and not to forget themselves, and like to relax, take break, to go to gym, or some years I enjoy. That's what I want to add.
Thank you, Dr. Megiso, and congratulations again on your step to CK. I'm sure you will make a great residence, and good luck on your applications this season.
Thank you very much.